Hello, listener. Welcome back to Reframing Midlife. And today, I am so excited. I have a very special guest, my husband, Lyle Smith. Your session starts now. Lyle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Honey, why do you have your glasses on?
Well, didn't you say this was like an incognito thing? So, nobody would know who I am?
Okay, we can hear your voice. But yeah, on video, you've got your sunglasses. I think you can take them off now. And certainly people are going to find out who you are. You are all over my Instagram feed, all over my videos. But how does it feel?
Well, I figure when I was wearing the dress and those things,
yeah.
Maybe they didn't know who it was.
Oh, in our previous life. But how does it feel to be on this side of the camera?
Well, it's tougher. It's easier to be on the editing side.
Yes. So Lyle is my number one supporter, and you are my IT person. I could actually not do this without you. The video
I think you could.
And the editing. Oh, thank you, honey. But I know this is not your comfort zone. And you're here today because we want to talk about marriage and how to do the best you can, actually, during midlife. And my last episode, I was talking about gray divorce and attachment styles. We're going to get to that. But I want to do something in this episode, which is really like divorce busting. Like, I don't want it to be so negative that you're certainly headed down the path of divorce, because it's really...
Well, I hope not.
Yeah, of course.
That would be news to me.
No, I'm not bringing you here to announce something. But really just to help people kind of reframe what that's like, and then to give them maybe some little marital advice or tips or things that you and I are finding. It must not be easy to have a therapist as a wife.
Yes and no. I mean, I think you've had a lot of experience in working through these things, so I think that helps, for sure.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Because, sometimes there's this languaging out there that I want to help dispel, this idea about emotional intelligence. And it sounds kind of complicated. And I think even for men who might be listening, like, what does this mean to be emotionally available? And we're going to break it down later in the episode. But before we get there, Lyle, why don't you just tell my listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, story, and maybe how we met?
So, I have maybe a little bit unusual history, and then I've been fortunate to have two great marriages. I actually lost my first wife way back in 2004 to stomach cancer, which was a really, really tough thing. I have two boys, and now we have the two boys, and it's been great to have Diane in their life. And, it's been great because, for me, marriage is all about having a partnership and doing most things together, obviously not everything. And I've been fortunate to have that 2 times now. And I know a lot of people out there don't especially get it one time.
Absolutely.
So yeah. And we met 17 years ago, I guess it is now, on Match.com. And
what was your handle, honey?
Mine was Tall Man Biking.
Yes, it was. And I was Bikes for Two. And we both rode bikes, and I lived a mile away from you. And
we would have never met him.
Exactly. Would have never met you any other way.
Yeah.
What did you think when you first met me?
Well, it was kind of hard to first meet you, actually, because, we met online, and I would ask her questions and try and get a phone number or set up a time or anything like that.
I was a little cautious.
She was busy. So, and
you were persistent.
Finally, I was at work one day, and she messages me that she can meet me for lunch, like, in an hour. And I'm a little bit of a bicycle nut, so I commute to work on my bike. And so the only way to get there was to hop on my bike and take the train and arrive on my bike. And so my bike, I parked out in front, and she saw that. And so one of her early screening questions was, do you own a car? Fortunately, I did, but maybe she'd give a little history about why that was important.
I had a client who was complaining that she was dating a guy who did not own a car, and that's a tough thing in California. You really do need a car. It's like a different lifestyle. So anyway, you passed the test. And
well, there was another test, right?
Yeah.
I had a burger and fries, and
Oh yeah.
I could see her looking at my fries. And she really wanted one, so I finally offered them to her.
It's
And
like
of course, then
friends.
she had to go back to a patient, and so she left kind of before we were done. And
I
I
said,
was
"You
going
got
to pay
this,
the
right?"
bill anyway, but it's kind of,
Yeah, I was a little hurried, right? But those were good times, you know? And what I really appreciated is that you were very persistent in courting me. And here's what I wanted to tell people is that this was the first marriage for me. And I had dated a lot. And I was already, 40, 41? 41. And I dated so many divorced men, actually, who were a little negative and a little cynical. And Lyle, your story, though it is unique, really stood out for me. That you were happily married, that you wanted to be married again, and that your first wife and you were best friends. And I'm like, this is music to my ears. And just that I wouldn't be like struggling hard, because in other relationships I've not felt important, and you always made me feel really important. And that was special. And you were also at a vulnerable point because you'd lost your wife and you were sensitive and maybe more emotional, and it just really touched me. And then we dated for a year, got engaged, had a wonderful wedding,
a lot of fun. Yeah.
and we've been doing great things as a family. We travel, we ski, we go on lots of awesome trips, and now you're retired. And that's where you can help me.
And she's keeping me very busy.
Yes.
With editing and projects and that sort of thing.
And our volunteering
And I do
together.
a little teaching too. So.
Yeah. And we play pickleball and ride bikes still and all those good things. Yeah. So the other part I wanted people to clue in on is why we wanted to come here today, because I think we're a pretty classic story in terms of attachment styles. So if anybody's interested, please check out my last episode on attachment styles. And I have a quiz on my website. I'll link it in the show notes. Take the quiz. It's like 2 minutes and you'll find out your attachment style. But
I've taken it many times.
yeah, of course. Now, I raised my hand and said I'm an anxiously attached person, or a nervous Nora, as I call it, meaning my nervous system is sensitive. What are you, Lyle?
I'm an independent EN. I come from a family that doesn't express a lot of emotions and really is acts of service more than expressions of love and that kind of stuff.
So you're acts of service and physical too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so the independent
But
type is more...
not so verbal.
Right, not so verbal. The independent type is also known as the avoidant type. And so it's really the combination, which is the most common. Sort of opposites attract. And
although I don't need a lot of alone time
Right.
like some
Right.
do. But yeah.
But coming back to needs, which is important, that I need reassurance, validation, connection. And the classic avoidant person would need space, distance, time to oneself to process, especially during stress. Which brings me to why we're talking about this episode too on midlife, which is the stress that a lot of women probably can relate to, and how hard it is to manage all the symptoms, hot flashes, mood swings, brain fog. What's that been like for you?
Well, it's tough seeing you struggle like that. And it's tough not being able to help. I'm an engineer by training, and I want to fix problems. And some of these things aren't immediately fixable. And so what you really need is empathy and for me to be there. And that's, I want the problem to be fixed. And so it's a challenge because I can't fix it. I certainly want to help you in any way I can, but some of these things do take time to sort out. And you're still, the last 6 months or so, you've been really struggling with some problems there, and it's been hard for you.
Yeah, and for context, just to let people know, I've since March actually had like lots of sleep problems, like 3 hours a night. I mean, there was that point where it was really bad, and then more recently I'm having neck problems, neurological problems. We're still trying to sort it all out, but you know, last week I was in a lot of pain. And you said, hey, we got to take you to urgent care. And we went and they were full. But it started the ball rolling to, you know, wave the white flag and get going on all of this. And hopefully I'll have some good news soon and we'll figure it out and sort that out. But that's emotional intelligence. You know, listening to your partner, even expressing. And I know it's hard for you because you feel helpless, hopeless, and that's been a lot of my fear in addition to my pain. It's like, I don't know what this is, and I get anxious, and just helping me calm down. And I have to tell you, Lyle, I think what's so important for people is they feel helpless and hopeless, and then they'll do nothing. And you know, one of the biggest things you've done for me, which is small, but it's big, is just asking me how I am. Like, how are you doing, honey? How did you sleep? Are you in pain today? How's your head feel? Can I do anything? And what do I love that you do for me?
Massaging
My back. I don't know what it is. I've got this neuromuscular thing.
And I have sore thumbs.
Exactly. But it really helps. It's like if I could be on a massage table full time, it'd be great. But those kinds
and
of
massages
things,
don't do much for me at all. So
yeah. But those kinds of things, little though they are, that is super helpful. And I know it's been hard for you too. And this is not who I typically am. So,
no.
So I don't like seeing myself like this either.
Yeah, I know.
So let's get back to the opposites attract kind of, because the attachment styles. So I'm the anxious person, and what's so important to talk about, in my last episode I talked about how to earn your attachment. And classically, according to attachment theory and psychology, it takes about 5 years to earn attachment. So we're wounded in childhood, we have unmet needs that then show up in marriage under stress, and then it's how your partner fixes and meets that need that the healing happens. So it's not just like, oh, calm down, or, you know, don't make a big deal. And by the way, I also am responsible for validating myself. So I want to put that in some context, because I will say in the first 5 years, I kind of remember there were a couple times where I would be upset about something, and then I'm like, Diane, check yourself. God, like, Lyle can't do everything. You are working full time. We're busy. I've got to also be responsible for myself. But talk about challenges and talk about conflict. The theme that we've had, and we're only talking about it hoping it will help somebody else, is that sometimes we get into this little, knit about like accountability and about sometimes saying I'm sorry or owning your part when you think it's obvious, right? It's like, well, yeah, I just broke this or something, and I just want you to acknowledge it.
Yeah, those are a challenge. As again, I'm not as verbal, and I think some things are obvious, and I'm pretty quick with that. I want to move on, and so I need to learn to spend a little bit more time with that with you.
So let's talk about that. That's what I call, in therapy, we call it join before you deflect, right? And I know I've said this a lot, but nobody else knows this. And so the joining part is the part about like this, I see you, I get you, I validate you, that must be tough, before we move on to the deflection. Because what happens for me is that sometimes you double down and just repeat back why you did what you did. And it's not really, and I haven't felt seen yet. So it just feels like you're just repeating something. And so if I don't feel seen, then it's hard to move on.
Right. And from my perspective, and this is what has taken me a while to kind of get through,
Mm-hmm.
is I hear you, I feel like I'm being attacked.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of going through that and explaining, I mean, accidents happen, that sort of thing, and something else happened, and I feel like I'm being attacked, and that's not what you're doing or asking for, but it's hard for me not to spiral into that and try to explain what I'm doing, because again, it's sort of the logical engineer type of thing. That's
Right.
not what you need at that moment.
Right. So that's been our work, and it's not easy. And when I'm not in pain and not stressed out, I can be a lot more tolerant. And also, I think the balance is that we also have a lot of fun and we have a lot of other positivity between us, because those circumstances can get really hard. And it's usually not, for all couples, it's like the 80% of the time that things are going well, it's great. But it's the 20% of the time when you're in stress and two people running fast, or you've got young kids, or you're sandwich generation, taking care of your parents, you've got your sister who's been ill. This year in particular, we've just had a lot of things. Yeah. And so...
But also good times too.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
So-
it's important to
Yeah.
have the good times.
Right. So putting that into perspective. But is there anything else that you're learning if men are listening and saying, okay, my wife says I'm not emotionally intelligent, I am defensive. Do you have any other tips?
Well, it's hard. You have to step back, right?
Mhm.
And figure out, again, I'm very logical, rational, that kind of thing. And while that works for me, it doesn't work as well with you. So I have to step back and think about the couple and how do we best get through this? Because a lot of times it's just a little nit and it doesn't really matter. Yet,
Right.
you know, you don't, it doesn't really help anything to be going off in different directions. So both people have to try and back off the cliff a little bit and
And I think
talk it through.
something else, Lyle, as you're talking, what's so important is I think a lot of men worry that it's going to keep escalating, like there's no ceiling. And this is where I say what's really important in the anxiously attached person, just speaking for myself. I want to say I'm healed, but I'm not at those moments. So like I'm mostly secure, but in that moment I can kind of feel emotional.
When you're in hot water.
Right, when I'm in hot water. So my analogy, which if you listen to the last episode, we're all like tea, right? You don't know who somebody is until you put them in hot water, and that's the stress part. But you think there's no ceiling and it's going to keep going. But what you don't realize is that when you stay in the pocket, that's being emotionally intelligent, and listen and validate and feedback, like, oh, this is what I heard you say, that actually calms the person down. And instead, because you want to avoid it, like, oh, this is just too much, I can't handle it, leave me alone, be quiet, right? And then, even if we do, which we have had to take time out, I'm usually the one who comes back and says, Lyle, we have to keep talking. But knowing that we're going to do that, right, that we're going to come back and then we're going to repair, and then later, I don't mind listening to what happened for you. But if the joining doesn't happen first, then it's just going to fall on deaf ears and it's going to sound defensive.
Right.
Right.
It's putting fuel on the fire.
As I say, gas. You're pouring gasoline on the fire. Wow. Oh, I'm glad we can laugh about it now. And we're actually doing that great now. So, but we can talk about this, and other couples struggle with it. And of course, menopause is hard. Do you have any symptoms of menopause? Have you noticed it?
Not that I'm aware of, but I guess you would be the judge, not me.
Well, I think we're so used to talking about menopause for women, and I do know that men go through. Well, you have, like, in your cycling, you're frustrated that you can't recover as quickly. I mean, you're quite athletic. We both take really good care of ourselves, but
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I think I've been pretty fortunate that I've always stayed in good shape, and I can still do pretty much everything I want to.
Yeah.
Can I always keep up with the young guys? Well, no.
Right.
But I'm still pretty happy with what I'm doing.
Yeah. And so I think aging is a little bit different for men, right? You're not obviously losing estrogen the way that women are, and I've been on hormones, been off the hormones. I mean, it's that there's not just a one size fits all.
Yeah. It was tough when the kids passed me in skiing.
Oh, I know.
I was little. That was my 60th birthday, and I wasn't quite willing to do the crazy stuff with them anymore.
That was a sad day at Whistler. I was like, oh, honey.
But I can still beat them in pickleball. I can still beat them in bicycling.
Not that you're competitive. What did have I beat you like once in something?
What was that?
On vacation, I thought. Didn't I beat
Oh,
you
that
with
was
basketball or
we were running up the trail, going up the steps.
Oh yes. Okay. All right.
But you started ahead of me, so.
Okay. So, do we have any other advice for men who might be listening?
Stick with it.
Mm-hmm. Don't
For
give
sure.
up, right?
Yeah.
Don't give up.
Yeah.
And I want to also talk about how you support me in my business, because sometimes this falls on deaf ears too. Like a lot of men will be like, yeah, honey, whatever you want. But I've been talking to other women about what that really looks like, and talk about acts of service when I'm working late and you can just go get dinner and take care of that. And I came down the other day and you had the salad already, even though that wasn't what I thought we were going to have for dinner. It really does make me feel cared for, and I think that's where men really do need to kind of step up. And let's talk about date night too.
Well, I'm not always great at that, but we do try to have, Friday night date nights.
They're pretty good. We've gone through seasons, right?
Right.
Where we're better at it, or then sometimes I'll just make a reservation. But if we take the time, then it creates specialness.
Right.
We also go on walks. We go on the fart walks after dinner. We do
Pickleball, we do bike rides,
we entertain. You help me when we do entertain, which I really appreciate. Like you're just
I do the dishes.
You do all the dishes, which is super helpful. You do the laundry, all those other things. But I think it's not just that, because I think sometimes the verbal can just be lip service and not really helping with the logistical things. And that's really when marriage is a business arrangement, and really that things need to be done, and you relieving me of any of those stressors or burdens, or even with the boys, and we're taking a trip and you're managing all of that and making the plans. It's huge.
We're a team.
Yeah.
We're a team.
Yeah. And Lyle, I'm so blessed because you were happily married. Your parents did a nice job, though they're not as verbal as I would have hoped, but that you have, really good values, and that is what attracted
Values is
you.
important, and
Yeah.
we both,
Yes.
we both have the same values, and
Yes.
that makes a big difference.
Oh yeah, I mean, we were in Chicago. You were helping my dad. We were putting up pull bars for him. My dad's 92. I mean, you're like right in there, helping with all those things, and that just really means a lot for family.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
you've been great for the boys, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they really needed a woman in their life after they lost their mom. And
Yeah.
You've done it.
Yeah.
You've done a great job of that.
Okay, I've teared up a couple times. I think that might be it.
Okay.
Okay. So we want to reframe marriage and midlife. The best is yet to come. Because
Every day is a new adventure.
we're just getting started, baby. We're just 15 years in, and it's been a pleasure to be on this journey with you. I even have your little doll. So we've got.
It's not my doll, it's your doll.
Okay, so if you're going to be watching The Golden Bachelorette, I had to get the grandparent Barbie doll, and look at this. Wow, hold your doll. It looks exactly like you. Okay, on the video you can see. All right, so we got this cute little doll, and I just couldn't help it, but it looks exactly like that. Anyway, we're excited about The Golden Bachelor because it's all about finding love, right? And
It's the Bachelorette.
sorry, Bachelorette. But it's never too late. And what I love is that the heart does not know time. And so you can, when you fall in love, you feel like you're 16 again. It doesn't matter if you're 67 or 58 or whatever the age, that it's an opportunity to be close, to heal those wounds, to really, have what everybody wants, which is just a loving, caring partner. And there's nothing that has to be, doom and gloom about it. I want to say have fun, dance, move a little. I hope I bring joy to your life because I'm a
Absolutely. We have a great time.
I'm a bit of a goof.
A bit of a goof, yeah. A great interviewer.
Okay. You have been a terrific guest. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Okay.
And
I'm looking forward to getting back behind the mics and the camera.
Okay. And for being the best husband.
You too.
Thank you so much for checking out my video on reframing midlife. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a like, a comment, and share with other people like yourself. Let me know what you're struggling with in midlife. Let's create a community of like-minded women. For more information, go to my website, dr-diane.com, and subscribe to my newsletter. Your session is over. We'll talk soon.